Yo, microphone check. Yo, microphone check. All right, we got mics on. Yo, what's going on? What's good in the hood? It's JP, Jay the Prophet. We here. We here right now. Yeah. Sorry about that. We had a little technical difficulty. We talking about Maduro today, Venezuela. We got some new things right now. First and foremost, bro, I want to talk about some things like this drug cartel that they got Maduro. See, I want to talk about the charges. I want to talk about what they charged him for. I want to talk about where he came from, his up like where he started at pretty much. I do want to talk about the people trying to take his role now, and I want to talk about his wife a little bit. But we're gonna start out talking about man. So this whole thing, they we're gonna get to his charges, but I'm gonna let it go right now. They didn't charge him in connections with the Cartel del Sol or Cartel del Sol for a reason, I'm guessing, because I'm doing my research. It seems like that's the whole connection. Or they didn't charge him with Tren de Aragua, whatever they're called, the Tren de gang. They didn't charge. He didn't charge him with connections with none of those. He has no charges for those two cartels, right? And from what we heard, he's been sending. Those were his peoples. He's been sending his peoples to us, the Tren de Aragua and the Cartel del Sol. They've been sending the drugs. The Trende's been sending their people, terrorizing the U.S., right? They got no charges on them. But they do got charges on this group called the ELN, uh, Liberation Militia or something like that. They go across the border from Cuba and Venezuela. And apparently they're part of they work with the military, the Venezuelan military, and they sell drugs and they mine gold. Like there's some real drug dealing, gold mining. Was the name of an operation. Was the name of an operation in Venezuela for the CIA in Venezuela. It's the whole '90s drug movement, crack movement. It brought all that in. Like that was that movement right there. You ever seen Snowfall? Like the CIA, they were at that time they were doing Cartel del Sun. They claimed the historically they say it was failed. It was a failed mission. But when you look at what happened and what's going on and what they continue to do is label people as Cartel del Sun. That is a CIA group. We created them. We named them to the point where we collaborated with the Cartel del Sol, which is, they say, it's the patch on the military jacket of the Venezuelan military. So we collaborated with the military. We created corrupt military officials and labeled them, then went and labeled them as Cartel del Sun when we actually made them corrupt to move drugs out of Venezuela to the US. So this is all planned out and this has been happening, but for some reason they want to just make us think that Cartel del Sol is some Maduro gang, but it's a CIA gang that we created them, right? So the problem with the ELN is they're saying that the Cartel del Sol works with the ELN to protect drug routes, but the Venezuelan military fights. They fight like their enemies, the ELN's enemies, to make it seem like they're moving drugs, they're stopping drugs, but they're allowing the ELN to move drugs freely. This is what they say. This is how Maduro works with the ELN. He's using his military to take out the ELN's ops so the ELN could move drugs through Colombia and Venezuela and get them to Europe, wherever they're going, right? So the problem is that they beef. They have wars. You know what I mean? Maybe not real bloody wars, but they fight a lot. You know what I mean? And it's just not it's not working. So the problem is they're fighting all the time, but they're trying to say they're enemies. I mean, they're cool. The U.S. is going to label anybody in Venezuela as the ops. They don't care who it is. So even though we created the Cartel del Sol, we created the drug problem, the drug trade out there, because we're trying to feed our Americans, right? We deal with the issue. You know what I mean? We got to deal with the problem. You know what I mean? In Venezuela, so we go over there, we try to handle it, and then we try to blame Maduro. So this is the problem because Maduro may get off because of this because we have our hands on it. We're implicated in all this. The CIA created the cartel. That's why they didn't mention the cartel in the charging papers. Tren de Agua. I'm wondering why they ain't mention them in the charging papers. What's going on, y'all? What's going on? What's cracking, man? Thanks for joining in. Give me some likes, some thumbs up, and all that. But yeah, they created the cartel in the charging paper. I mean, they created the cartel. That's why they didn't mention them in the charging papers. I think that's a big problem because they're gonna have to try to connect the dots, right? They skipped over the Cartel del Sol. The Cartel del Sol is supposed to be the military, right? The corrupt military officials that sell drugs. So I think that's a big issue. But if we just go back to the top, um, Maduro, yes, Maduro, he's been fighting he's been fighting the fight, I guess, for a long time. He started out as a bus driver. He worked his way up through trying to unionize bus drivers and transportation, then got himself into the eye view of Hugo Chavez and was handpicked to succeed him, right? So if you wonder why Nicolas Maduro is so hated, because he's literally handpicked by Hugo Chavez, which is the most hated person in Venezuela, only because he wanted to get some oil for his peoples, right? So the oil situation in Venezuela kind of began when Chavez, he wanted to nationalize the oil. He didn't want to take all the oil for himself. He just wanted to nationalize it. He wanted some oil. He wanted some money for his people. They wanted a majority control of oil. So a few oil companies were cool with it. Chevron, BP, they were cool with it. Exxon, ConocoPhillips, they weren't cool with it. So apparently Exxon, ConocoPhillips, they were kicked out. They left because they didn't want to agree to the new terms of the deal, right? They went to the international judiciary, got a suit, got them a judgment for almost $10 billion. And that's where we're at right now. So this whole idea that Venezuela stole our oil, which was their oil, they stole our oil because we reneged on their rights to the oil. Okay, they reneged on their rights to the oil. I'm not Venezuelan, but this created a problem for the oil companies. So the oil companies ran around the world screaming socialism because Venezuela wanted to take majority control of the oil fields and the profits. So that's why Maduro's labeled as a socialist. Other things, creating, massive inflation, creating, just crazy, massive inflation, just the sanctions for his people. Like, his people suffered because of all this. They went through this and they didn't fold or nothing, you know what I mean? But they made their people suffer because they didn't want to fold to the oil companies, right? And his wife comes into the picture because she was Hugo Chavez's lawyer when this happened, you know what I mean? So that's why she's under arrest. Like, she was Hugo Chavez. She was on the legal team, not the lawyer, but she was on the legal team when he got arrested. And that's why she got a bump on her forehead. That's why they tossed her around a little bit, threw her in jail, you know what I mean, and all that. Normally, you wouldn't think the wife would go to jail, but apparently she had connection with Hugo Chavez. So that's one thing, right? Then we fast forward to this whole going back to the drug thing, right? Because they got him for smuggling cocaine. But Trump, the whole year has been talking about fentanyl. Every boat's been saving 25K fentanyl. Everybody's saving fentanyl. You know, all these lives are being saved because we're blowing up these fentanyl boats, right? But in the charging papers, fentanyl was mentioned 0 times. Fentanyl was not mentioned 1 time in the charging papers. So this whole year we were told that every boat was blown up, saved 25,000 lives, which I think we only averaged 100,000, less than 100,000 deaths from fentanyl. So the math was off, but apparently the drugs was off too because they got him for smuggling cocaine. And this is a problem because he was lying. Trump was lying to the people. You know what I mean? They may be able to pin the cocaine on him if they make the connections through the Cartel del Sol and the ELN, the Liberation Group, moving the cocaine. But as I went through earlier, that the CIA created this corrupt military that sells drugs. So what makes you think that the CIA isn't still involved in this? It doesn't still have assets in this cartel? And I think that's a question that Maduro may try to, he's going to definitely try to fight that in court because history shows us that they created it. That's the reason why this is happening. They weren't doing drugs like that. They weren't moving drugs like that. And to top it off, so now that we're talking about we blowing up cocaine boats, right? I mean, we can all put our brains together and use some common sense. When you blow up the cocaine, the fentanyl percentage goes up in the cocaine that's left. So, and it's worse because they step on the coke. They cut the coke, right? They have to cut it because it's too pure, right? So they cut it to make it, because it's already strong. They don't need to keep it strong, you know what I mean? But they cut it to stretch it. Sometimes they cut it, for other reasons. But when the price has doubled because of the supply and demand, it's the free market, right? When the price is double or whatever it's at, I don't know. I'm not buying them. You know what I mean? You gotta cut it, to make your profit because the price then doubled. The people don't want to pay twice the price. These are Americans right here. We're already dealing with inflation. They're not trying to pay more money. So what do? You cut it with something like B2, something, a benzo, something, you cut it with something lighter, but then you add something a little more potent in like fentanyl, because that's something that is still free flowing into the US that wasn't stopped by blowing up these boats. You know what I mean? Fentanyl. So my opinion, and I did run it by AI, and it says, yes, the cocaine bricks will have more fentanyl now that there's less cocaine on the market. It's free market, right? So essentially, more people may die because more of these drug dealers are going to be sneaking fentanyl, trying to find the right balance so they don't kill their customers, but they don't notice that, this isn't no good. This isn't good. This is bad. This isn't the drug I bought, right? And that's a problem. And I think that's where we may see, if we do see an increase. I really hope we don't see more deaths in 2026 from fentanyl than 2025. Trump stopped the flow through the border for the most part, but we still getting fentanyl in here. So it's not coming through the people, but it is coming through certain ways, But yeah, pretty much, yeah, that's what I wanted to cover. You know what I mean? Definitely the Rodriguez bro and sis, they trying to take over. Machado, yeah, we can handle that some other time because that's a whole different story. But y'all have a good one. Y'all take care. Deuces.